Right. Good morning. Now we try to cover up these. We have just completed the these aims and objectives assessments we have done, and then we are discussing the syllabus. We have just go through the syllabus. Last week we have completed the organization, right? The organization's part. And we have some more lectures. We can go till maybe somewhere in February. But mind you, now next Sunday there will be no classes, no lectures, right? Next Sunday, no lectures. You can enjoy this on holiday for IBSL, so you can also enjoy on next Sunday, right? So that's the good news as far as the you are concerned, right? And today we try to move into the management skills, right? The management skill. Now these are the things what we have completed last time. I mean the last 2 days, last two sessions. These are the areas we covered under organization, and therefore today we are going to start a new area where we are going to discuss what is management and the theoretical aspects or models of management, or what you call the evolutions of management, where we are going to discuss the principles and the schools or approaches and theories of management. And then the second part, we'll see whether we can cover. Today I have already given you tude number 3 as well. We'll see whether we can cover all these things next today, but I don't think we will then go for next week, right? Okay. So under management theories, what we are going to discuss, these are the areas, right? Okay, right. Now let's first look at it. What is management? Now something is not in your hand now. Management has got originated in the Italian language, but usually, you know, a lot of from Greek and all. No, now this term management got originated in the Italian language from the word called managere. So that means handling, right? The fragile managing on cura. So that is what handle with care, right? So that is how today it was converted to the concept called management, right? Now, in order to understand the term, sorry, understand term management better. Now, one should know what is exactly the organization. If you want to get a better understanding about management, you need to understand what you mean by an organization and business. So that is what we spent a lot of time last two sessions to discuss about the organizations. Actually, these are the organization is the foundations of management, right? Now businesses mean producing product and services by using these limited resources to achieve an organization called a business. So that's a very simply business. Any person who develop products and services using their limited resources in order to achieve their organization, their own goals and thing, we call business. So therefore, in order to understand better, we need to know what is organization and a business. Right. Now, you know, these management as a discipline was introduced to organization in the 19th century. So there are, after that only, there is a various theories and concept got added subsequently. But that doesn't mean management started after 19th century. No, actually it is more than that. I will explain to you a little later on. Now first we may look at it basically what is management. Now in order to understand the management concept properly or proper, so it is better to know a little bit of management, and thereby we are trying to study, or we are going to explain the different definitions introduced by different scholars, right? Now let first we'll talk about one of the definition. Now the Mary Parker Follett, a lady, uh, first introduced management is the art of getting things done through other people, right? So that's a what this is in 18th century, 1819th, early century she has defined. So then there's another definition introduced by James F. Stoner. Now that is the famous that green management book writer James F. Stoner, and what he said, management is the process of planning, organizing, leading, controlling the work organization members, and all using all available organization resources to reach stated organizational goal, right? And what the Gem Stone talk about. Then Daft, another the latest management guru, what he defined as management, uh, the attainment of organizational goals in an effective and efficient manner. So he introduced two words into the definitions: effective and efficient, through planning, organizing, leading, and controlling organizational resources. Right, but both are having something is missing in these definitions. But draft has introduced efficient and effective. But all these management process functions achieving organizational goals are remain there. So Daft introduced two critical words, what you call effective and efficient. Then Robbins in 2005 also introduced management or defined management as it's a coordinating work activity, right? It's a coordinating work activity so that they are completed efficiently and effectively with through other people. So you see, so there may be a definition, but in all these definition is carry some sort of similarities. Let's look at it some more definitions. Why we are explaining all these definition, you need to get an understanding about about something. Now, according to our Professor Gunapalana Nayakara, some of you may be aware, is the person, former director, PIM, that is Postgraduate Institute of Management. And he also introduced, right, like, you know, Professor Opata is a Sri Lankan person who develop or who come up with, who written a lot of HR articles and HR books, where still a lot of Sri Lankan are using this particular book. Like Professor Gunapala Narakara also introduced what is management. Now he said the management is a process, right? And creating value. So that's a marketing word. So every marketer try to do what? Every marketer try to add value to their offer, right? Now every organization try to add value to their offer. That is what he said. Management is the process of creating value. Now in the marketing jargon, people are telling value mean customers are buying the of goods and services considering this, what is the CVP they are getting. CVP mean customer value proposition. The organization which give higher CVP, so customers used to buy. Likewise, Mr. Gunapalan Anayakar, professor said, management is the process of creating value. Every management, we need to create value for customers or create value for people concerned. It involves analysis of concepts of information, concepts and information, technical designs of things and actions, deployment of resources and working with people. Deployment of resources mean we need to use scarce resource, we need to deploy these resources by using people, right? So that's a Gunapala, Professor Nanayakara's definition. So out, look at it, all these definition. So we will, there's all one definition, all this definition is something is missing. Now, what is the missing word? What is the missing word? Is now everything we need to work under this prevailing current environment. So something is missing in all these. So therefore, the latest the definitions can be described as a management is the process, right? Now, I think you can remember we at the very first day we define what is an organization, right? So every definition will have a real meaning. Now, I have underlined certain key points, and these points need to be elaborated, and you need to be understand what you mean by that, right? Okay, now let's look at it. This definition, management definition. What is that management? Management is the process. Now, the moment of you talk about process, process mean I'm always telling you series of activities, right? Management is the process of planning, organizing, leading and controlling the limited human and physical resources efficiently and effectively to achieve goals and objectives of an organization in an ever-changing business environment. Now, all things we need to do under changing business environment, right? Because we are living in a highly changing environment. Right, now let's look at it. This definition is more clearly detailed. What do you mean by these highlighted, underlined keyword? Right, it's give you a lot of meaning. It's not confined to only to 4 or 5 lines, but it give you more than that. Now let me again explain to you what is that meaning, right? So let me explain now, right? What is the process? Now, if you think about concept of management, a little look at it. As I told you, it is some people are talk about it is a process. Management is a process. Okay, I will explain to you later on that. And also management, sometimes they talk about is an art and science, but this is nothing to do with the definition. Management is an art and science. Now, what do you mean by an art? Art means something you do in a more creative manner, right? Something you do in a creative manner is what you call an art. And what do you mean by an science? Science means well accepted methodology or some accepted method. So therefore, management, some people are telling, is an art and as also science. So do it in a creative way, but you need to do in some scientific manner, right? And also some people talk about management follows a professional approach. So we may going to discuss latter part of my course, my session. We may discuss. It is not in your handout. It is not in your syllabus, but management was requested me to incorporate about your professional approach as a manager. So there we will discuss about ethics, right? And business ethics and personal ethics. So what are the professional characteristics of a business manager? So these are the things we will discuss later part of under human resource development, and we will discuss under business ethics. Right. And here the professional approach means what professional manager is usually do, delegates authority. And we will maybe discuss most probably next time, the next year when we meet, what do you mean by a delegation? Why people are little reluctant to delegate. You know, there's a story in Sri Lankan history, delegating authority, right? Subasai as a drama will tell you delegation issues. Now, a lot of managers, a lot of your superiors are little bit reluctant to delegate the authority to you, right? And lot of good professional manager must encourage initiative or attitude. So it has to be developed initiatives. And also good professional manager always invite suggestions of your subordinates, right? And also try to provide training to your employees. So these are four fundamental things any professional manager need to do. So that is what you call a professional manager. Now you work for some manager, your senior officer. Now you compare. Now you may be dealt with different managers. No, so you may serve for under different managers. Now let's look at it. I mean, you look at it yourself. How many of managers you work under are professional managers? That's my point. How many of managers you can think on these four lines, right? These four lines. Whether are they delegating to you? Are they encourage you to come up with novel ideas? And are they prompted for you to come with some solutions and suggestions? And up to what extent they give you sort of a training, right? So it is, then you consider he is a professional manager, right? Okay, we will discuss those things little later. Now coming back to our definitions, that is management is a process, right? That definitions, we will look at it now. What do you mean by process? Now, as I explained to you earlier, the process is series of activities. What are the activities? What are the series process you need to carry out under management? We call them as four main functions. These are we call them as peripheral functions of management. So these are the core concept of management. What are these principles of core concept of management or functions of management? We call them as planning, organizing, leading, controlling. Now let's look at it. These keywords very simply. So we are going to discuss little later on in more details, right? So right. So what is planning? Planning, the process of establishing goals and suitable course of action, activities, mechanism, and resource budgets for achieving these goals. So that's a very simple definition. We are going to touch planning. What are the type of planning organizations need to develop? Corporate planning, tactical planning, operational planning. What are those? We will going to discuss most probably if time permitted today or maybe next time. Right. Then what do you mean by an organization? Organizing. Now the organizing is a process of engaging two or more people work together to structured way to achieve an organizational specific goals and objectives. Right? Now, outcoming of organizing is organization structure. Now, we have spent maybe the very first day more time for organizational structure. So therefore, we are not going to touch more on organization aspects because we discuss more organizational structure. What are the factors? What are the type of structures? Things like that. So next, we are going to discuss another functions of management. That is what we call leading. So leading, that means involving or directing, influencing, motivating people to perform essential tasks. There, of course, there are three areas we need to learn. One is the leadership, the communications, motivations. But last week we discussed out of the three areas comes under the leading, that is communication. We discuss what is communication, why it is important, what are the factors you need to look at it, verbal and non-verbal communication, and things like that. So, but the two other things we are going to discuss, the leaderships and motivation are separate, right? Now, the controlling part is the other functions. It is a systematic effects to set performance standards with planning objectives. Now, we want to see whether our plan is properly executed. We need to compare actual performance with these predetermined standards. You know, our action plan review, monthly review usually are taking place in the bank for these controlling purposes. So these are fundamental, we'll call them as process of activities of functions. Now I think you understood what you mean by this. Okay, right. Then we moving to the next part is what you call under that definitions. What is definition? Resources. Now, if you talk about the resources, anything that can be used in producing goods and services, we call them as inputs as in the management process. Those are we call inputs. Anything can be used in producing goods and services. Now, what are these scarce resources we usually identify? What are the scarce resources? There are many ways you can define resources. One method is economic way of defining resources. So very simply, what is the four areas of defining resources in economic jargon? One is land, labor, then capital, and entrepreneurship. So in the economics, during our O-level, A-level time, we discuss the resources in terms of organizational point of view. Land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. Then another way we can look at it, the resources as 5 M's, 5 M. All started with M. What are the M? Men, money, machine, material, methods. Right. Another way we look at it, resources. What are those? Men, money, machines, materials, and methods. Now, after some time, there are another two elements add to these 5 M's, right? Those are we call, in addition to those men, money, machines, materials, and methods, we added another two elements into the scarce resources like time and information. Time and information. Right? So you see now a lot of the different way managers or management practitioners can define what you mean by an scarce resources. Another way you can look at it, the resources like human resources, physical resources, financial resources, like that, right? So therefore, now you understand what are the type of resources. Okay, so in so different textbooks are defined in different ways. Those all are what you call a scarce resources. All right. Now sometimes a lot of students may get confused with assets and resources. Asset can what come at me? The resource can is sampan. Both are same. Are both are same. Not all are same. Now, say for an example, uh, now the what do you mean by assets? Asset, you can say the different way of investing investments of capital. That is asset. Now, say for an example, now debtors. Now, debtors is not a resource. The reputation, that is not a resource, right? The reputation debtors are not resource. But in the other way, what do you mean by a resource? Just we talk, right? Anything that we use to produce product and service. Anything we use as an input. So therefore, we can say customers. Customers are not a resources. Customers are assets, remember, right? Now, resource information is resources and time also resource, but they are not assets, right? So you need to understand this. If you use to insert to circle, there may be a both. Sometimes we considered both assets as well as resources. So those are, we can say, finance, the stock, we can consider both, can be considered as both resources and uh, assets, right? But apart from that, there is some different meaning of resources. Now, why we use now? I think you got an idea. What are the type of resources organization is having, right? And why we call them as resources, and why we need, because it is scarce. Now that's a fundamental problem in management. How to manage your resources. Now, what is the next one? We call them as goal and objective. As you said, goals and objectives. In fact, we discussed the goals and objectives in our first lecture or second lecture. What is the difference between goal and objective? Now, as you are aware, the goal is more broader steps, and objective be more smarter than goals, right? We discuss what do you mean by a smart and what do you mean by a prime, right? So therefore, objectives are more smarter than goals. Goals is a very long term, is sometimes little bit difficult to measure. Right now, you know the uh, goals and objectives as well as scarce resources, right? Okay, now let's look at it. Huh? Are there any issues? Okay, how the student, can you see the presentation?
No, sir, we can't.
Oh my goodness, how? Then why you keep quiet? Huh?
I have downloaded the presentation. I am looking at that.
You have already downloaded.
Yeah, yeah.
How about others?
It's already downloaded.
You all have done it.
Yeah.
That's no problem there. Okay, but you can, but But we need the, can you just give me a minute? We will try to put it right. Yeah. Sure. Okay, now it's okay, no?
Yes,
Now,
sir.
all right. So, right, they have not shared it, right? Okay, no problem. It's right. Now is okay, no? Right. Anyhow, but this is little bit slightly differ from your handout, but it's okay. Right. Now you understood what you mean by resources and goals and object. Now we are still defining the management, right? Okay. Now let's we look at it. The next one we call them as is an, now what is the definitions we discussed? The management is the process of planning, organizing, leading and controlling the limited human and physical resources in an efficiently and effective manner in an ever-changing business environment. Now we need to understand the business environment. Now every things we do, it has to be falling in line with the business environment. Now today, people are talk about business environment as VUCA world. VUCA, some different ways they can pronounce. Some people are telling VUCA, or most briefly called VUCA world. So what is this VUCA stand for? What is V stand for? V is, we call them as a volatile. Now, what do you mean by a volatile? The things are keep on changing, right? So that is what you call volatile. The things are keep on changing, the volatile. Now, you mean uncertainty. Uncertainty mean we cannot predict exactly the future, right? Cannot exactly predict the future. So that is uncertainty. And C stand for complex. Now the complex mean basically in our decision making, there may be a lot of variables are creeping to our decision making. Lot of variables we need to look at it, right? So that is what you call complex. And A mean ambiguity. So ambiguity mean, so uh, it's not so clear, maybe lack of information, right? We can't predict exactly, right? So we are conducting business today under this VUCA environment. So if you look at it, all other definitions, they have not touched upon all these things. We need to understand. We can execute all these things, but we need to consider what is taking place in the business environment. Now, good classic example in today's context is COVID-19. Now, see to what extent this COVID-19 pandemic is impacted our businesses, all the businesses, no? How good we manage, we need to look at it. All these factors. That is what you call business. Now, we have learned so many things. We discuss management as a process. Now, you know what you mean by a process. Process of some functions. Functions about planning, organizing, directing and controlling. Those are the functions. So then we discuss what we need to do to achieve organizational goals and objectives. We discuss what is organization's goals and objectives, right? And in order to achieve our organization's goals and objectives, what we need resources. Then we discuss what are the type of resources we are having. Different type of resources we are having. We discuss in details, right? And then we discuss again the another important area are about the business environment. Now, another two important areas we need to now we are going to discuss the two concepts, these scarce resources. Therefore, we need to use as efficient and effective manner. Actually, these two concepts was developed into the management by a Peter Drucker, the who supposed to be called them as father of modern management, right? Okay. Now, efficient and effective. What do you mean by an efficient and effective? Now, these are the two things, right? Now, you need to look at it. What is efficient and what is effective? Now, say for an example, I think I have already given you this example. If I'm going to cover your entire syllabus, which I have allocated me 10, 10 days, that means 40 hours. Now, if you can cover this 40-hour syllabus content within 20 hours, so therefore you think I am a so efficient person of lecturing. But whether I am effective or not, whether you not understood anything, so therefore I am not effective, right? So therefore, like that organization, we may use resources efficiently and effective, right? Now, effective means doing the right things, whereas the efficiency is doing things right. How we do what we do. Now, effectiveness or effective way mean basically how we are going to achieve our targets and goals, right? And efficiency mean no wastage of resources, right? But in today, most of the management gurus may consider the most important out of these two technical words, efficiency and effective, is the effective. Effective means is achieving goals. At what cost? So therefore, we need to have a strike a balance of these things, right? Good managers balance efficiency and effective. You are achieving your goals and also you are save resources. Now, say for an example, effective. Now, effectiveness we call, or effective we call in singular, sapalapte. Right? Now, if you define, if you work out in the financial ratio terms, what do you mean by itu sapalapte කියන්නේ මොකක්ද කිව්වොත් ළඟා කරගත් ප්‍රතිඵල බෙදනවා සැලසුම් ගත්ත ප්‍රතිඵලත් එක්ක. කලස් ප්‍රතිශතයක් වශයෙන් ගොම වැඩි කරනවා 100. ඒ කියන්නේ ළඟා කරගත් ප්‍රතිඵලය බෙදනවා අපි සැලසුම් කරගත්ත ප්‍රතිඵලය 100. So that is a ratio. So that means achievement divided by plan objective in multiplied by 100. So then what do you mean by an efficiency? Right? Efficiency means in singular we put වෙන් කරන ලද සම්පත් ප්‍රමාණය වෙන් කරන ලද සම්පත් ප්‍රමාණය බෙදනවා උපයෝජනය කරන ලද සම්පත් ප්‍රමාණය. Right? That means allocations of resources divided by used resources. There you get the efficiency. Right? Now, sometimes why I am telling you, you not supposed to wait too much on effectiveness. Sometimes you may achieve your targets and goals spending a lot of resources. දැන් අපි කිව්වොත් රුපියල් 100ක ඩිසිෂන් ලාභයකට රුපියල් 200ක් විතර අපි හිතමු අපිට රුපියල් 100ක් ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් එකක් තියෙනවා මේකෙන් අපිට හම්බෙන ලාභේ රුපියල් 200යි. මේ ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් එක වයබල්ද කියලා බලන්න අපි රිසර්ච් එකක් කරනවා රුපියල් 300ක් දීලා. ඒතර වැඩක් නැහැනේ. Right? So that is effective and efficient. The efficient නැහැ. හැබැයි effective. ටාගට් එක හරි. හැබැයි efficient නැහැ. ඇයි efficient නැත්තේ? වියදම් කරන මුදල උගා වැඩි. Right? So we need to have a balance. Sometimes we achieve the targets at a high cost. Sometimes we achieve we are not achieving the targets, but we have not we cannot achieve the targets because of we have not used adequately the resources. Right? So therefore, a good manager need to have a strike between these two. Right? Now, if you really look at it, effective is the performances and the efficiency is the approach. Okay? Right. So the important thing is you need to look at it to have a strike between the. And another important thing is most of the time, sometimes the students may confuse the word productivity with efficiency and effective. Now the productivity is the combinations of efficiency and effectiveness. Remember that also. Productivity is the combinations of efficiency and effectiveness. But it is not confined to one area. So the productivity means input-output ratio. Right? Input-output ratio. But efficiency means comparing resources used to product one unit. That is efficiency. Right? I think you understood on that ground what you mean by efficiency and effective. So in productivity, output is we usually call them as effective. Input we call them as efficiency. It's because we are using resources. Got my point? Now productivity is equal to output divided by input. What is output is an effective. So what is the input is efficiency, resources. So that is why I told you, remember, the productivity is a combination of efficiency and effective. Okay, now let's look at it. How these efficiency and effectiveness show organization successful. Now, I think everybody is know the primary objective of any organization. Right? What is your primary objective of living? Right? What is primary objective of any organization is what? Survive, at least for survive as well as grow. So we look at it, the success. Right? Primary objective of any organization is survival and growth. Right? Now, how any organization can do to achieve this? What they can do to achieve this? So you really look at it according to this diagram. If you really look at it, this diagram, now in this you can say the y-axis we call, you can, if you want further, put it in pencil in your handout. The y-axis is we call effectiveness, and the x-axis we call them as efficiency. And you can say in the first slot, the top is called yes, and the down in the effectiveness you can say no. The other side you can say yes in this point and the no in the other. Now let's look at it. Now if you really look at it from these two this diagram, if organization not effective, that means not achieve the goals and objectives. Now you say the two things: die fast, die slowly. Now die fast. Now if you really look at it, uh, inefficient, ineffective. So you are not achieve your target, as well as you are spending low money, right? So that is organization will not going to live long. Whether it's a short term or long term, it's immediately is going to die. Why? You are not effective, and also you are not efficient. Right. Then you look at the next point. You are efficient but not ineffective. What do you mean by that? Because of you may not achieving your target, but you are efficient. But if you are not achieving your targets, you can live for some time, but you're going to die. So therefore, dive slow, right? Even though you are efficient, since you are not achieving your goals and objectives, you are going to die, but not like that slowly. But if you really look at it the third way, to survive, but you're not going to die, but you are efficient and inefficient, effective but inefficient. What do you mean by that? That means effective means you are achieving your target, but spending lot of resources. One day your resources become depleted, so you are not going to live. But you can survive for certain period. But for an organization to be growth as well as survival, what you need to do? So you need to look at it how your resources can be used efficiently and effectively. Right? Okay. So I think why we explain in the management, we discuss the importance of efficiency and effectiveness. Right? Doing the things right and doing the things the right way. You think doing things right and doing the right things, right? That is efficiency and effective. Now you can see now the definitions, right? So we'll have a lot of, right? So going back again to your definitions of management, now you will see what is the definitions of management. What we have learned is clearly explained. Management is the process of what? Planning, organizing, leading, controlling, right? In order to achieve these functions, we need to use what? The scarce resources. What are the scarce resources? We discuss. Now, how we are going to use these scarce resources efficiently and effectively, right? We discuss why we need to use our resources efficiently and effectively. Now, why we do everything? We need to do everything to achieve our organizational goals and objectives, right? And in all these things taking place, what sort of environment? We need to consider the changing environment. Today we discuss about this changing environment as VUCA environment, and then we discuss what is. So all things we need to look at it, right? All things we need to look at it in a professional way. Good manager will do all things in a professional way. So management is therefore full of decision making, problem solving. That also we need to understand, right? So the process of management, right, or the management is full of decision making. We will discuss maybe most probably next year. We will discuss how to make a rational decision or irrational decisions. What are the factors you need to take about decision making? right? All things we will discussed next year. And just to remind you, we don't have lectures on online lectures on next Sunday, so you can enjoy, right? Okay, now I think you understood all these things in very clearly, right? Okay, any questions? Any questions? Can anybody tell me any questions? Right? Okay, can anybody, right? Champika, you are okay? Understood? Gayatri?
Yes,
Okay?
sir.
Right. Isivara? Okay? Isivara? හරිද සද්ද නෑනේ මොනාර කියන්න right right okay so now having understood very clearly what you mean by management, now again we may moving to discuss the next part, why we need to study management. So that's another important area of why. But it is a universally accepted concept. Wherever you go, you need to practice all these things. Right? And it is a reality of work. Actually, it is the reality of work. Right? And the rewards and challenges of being a manager because of how you manage your work, or manage your staff, or manage your team, or manage your organization. And mind you, it's also applied to any kind of organization, any type of businesses. And also, mind you, it is applied to all managers, right? And we need to understand that also. Why is management needed in that case? Because why management is needed, as we clearly explained to you earlier, one factor is clearly limited resources. One factor. Second factor, due to this competition, bankers have high competitions today. We have around 39 knots, 29 knots banks, and we had around 39 of finance companies, right? So there are around 26 of insurance companies, 9 of primary dealers. These are the players we need to get on. So competition is huge today, right? So for that, how you manage your organization to beat the competition, right? And also we know environment is keep on changing, right? Environment also keep on changing. We need to modify or maybe change the management concepts accordingly, or maybe modify, right? So those are the reasons why we need to study management. Okay, right. Let me next discuss some historical context, some historical concept. Now, I told you at the very beginning, management as a discipline was introduced in the organizations in the 19th century. That means after the Industrial Revolution, we move from agriculture economy to industrial economy. That was took place in 19th century. But remember, management as a discipline, even though it is more considered in late 90s, right? But it is not the case, right? Actually, the management theory or the concept used in a long time, from Sumerians, Egyptians, Babylonians, Greek, Romans, Chinese, Venetians, these are some histories go back to 3000 BC to 1500. So it's a long history, right? It is not a novel thing. It is not developed after 19th century, but it is more than that. I don't know whether you are having now, but when we are studying at our school, we these Babylonians, Egyptians, our pyramids, our Romeo, Atirajavadi, Rome, Atirajavadi, Adi, Kevami, Kalamanakarite, at the Ikenagata, right? Okay, so therefore the practice of management can be traced back thousands of years. Egyptians use, planning, organization, controlling when they construct the pyramids. Right? Observe the next slide. Right? Few most of important management breakthrough practices over last 4,000 years. Okay, so that is what we discussed. So going back again, why we need to study about this historical context of management. Some people think, what is the point now? Why we learn all these things? We are living in 21st century. We are in a digitalized Darwinism. So why we need to understand about these historical things? Right now, important things. We need to understand the past to not to do those mistakes again, to find results more than past, right? And also, mind you, even though some of the things what we have learned in these old days, still we are practicing in today's management context. That is why it is important to learn about these management theories, right? Now, so this is how our management evolved from 1890s, more than before that, and up to 2010, 2020s, right? Okay, right. Now, if you really look at it, these the important concept. So we need to learn something we call approaches. Sometimes we call schools, right? And through our evaluations of management, we'll discuss some management approaches. We'll discuss some management approaches. Now, if you really look at it, these management approaches, what we are going to discuss with you in more details today, right? And mind you, this is a comprehensive management lecture. I will tell you A to Z. When you go to do MBA or maybe university degree, business administration, management administration, personal administration, whatever you're going to learn, these concepts or these approaches are going to be teach you. So that is why I'm going to cover you all the things, right? Whether you are MBA, postgraduate or graduate level, higher diploma level or whatever you call, management approaches you need to study. But I try to explain to you in more details what are those management approaches. Right now, my important thing is what I'm going to tell you. I'm not just brief you what is approaches, what is Taylor theory, and no, I'm going to tell you why it is a theory, why it is an approach. What are the things we need to learn? Small, minute areas you need to understand. It's become going into your mindset, right? It's got registered. Right. Now you noted that when you are studying management, we come to cross the most of the time we call approaches, or sometimes we call schools, right? In Sinhala we call Gurukula, or sometimes we call Pivisuma, approach kind of Pivisuma in Sinhala, right? And then also we learned some theories, Nyayavadya, theory. So then what is the difference between a theory and an approach? What do you mean by an approach? What do you mean by a theory? Right? Now, in approach me, now say for example, you take theory. What do you mean by a theory? Mean is a private philosophy. It's a private concept, a private philosophy. සිංහලෙන් කිව්වොත් එහෙම ඒක පෞද්ගලික දර්ශනය. එතකොට what do you mean by an approach or a school? Right? So it is a common views of certain private philosophies. So that means in Sinhala we will put it එක හා සමාන මූලික මතවාදයන්ගෙන් සමන්විත පෞද්ගලික දර්ශයන් කීපයක එකමුතුව. Now see, we need to understand. Now see, there are some theories developed by individual people. All these individual concepts or theories developed by people are having some common characteristics. And then we took all these common characteristics which are having all with these all theories, we put it into one slot, and that is approach. So that means what do you mean by approach? Is a collections of common views of private philosophies. ඒ කියන්නේ අපි මේ තියරි වල සමාන ඒවා තියෙනවා නම් ඒවා එකට එකතු කරලා එක මතවාදයක් හදනවා. එක හා සමාන මූලික මතවාදයන්ගෙන් සමන්විත පෞද්ගලික දර්ශයන් කිහිපයක එකතුවකට තමයි අපි කියන්නේ එමනම් මේ approaches actually. Right? Now, when you go through our development of major management approaches, the people scientists who have come up with similar theories are putting to one approach. Right? So therefore, in order to study student about these different history of management or evolutions of management, students need to understand the difference between approach and a theory. So right, so these things are not available much on the textbooks, right? And I just want to tell you this is the way we are going to discuss. So these approaches, now you noted that we have a classical approach, behavioral approach, management science, systems approach, and all this approach. Now, mind you, these approaches are with the time frame you having different perspective. So we are trying to discuss all these evolutions, right? We are going to discuss all this evolution with this time frame. With this time frame, right? Okay, right. Now as I explained to you earlier, now all these new management concepts we are discussing after industrial revolution. Why? Because that doesn't mean before that there's no management. There is a management we discussed earlier, but we are more concentrating on after industrial revolution. Now, why after industrial revolution? Why this was happening after the industrial revolution? Right? Okay. One factor is after industrial revolution, we move from agriculture base to the industrial base. So we experience new things. We discuss about the factories. So the factory means large number of people are working, large number of machinery, large scale of production, right? A lot of things had took place after the industrial revolution, right? And then you look at it, the owners of this factory faced to handle large number of workers, right? Now, how we are going to minimize the wastage, how we can improve the productivity of these people, how can we earn more profits, how to reduce workers' unrest. So those are the problems or the challenges faced after industrial revolution. So therefore, it become necessary to manage these workforce to achieve all these requirements of employers or factory owners, basically, right? This is how the management evolved. On that ground, after 19th century, we call the first type of theories we call classical approach or classical theories. I told once again, I'm going to tell you once again what do you mean by approach. Approach is similar type of theories pulled together form an approach, and this is a traditional approach. We call them as classical approach. Classical approach. Under this approach, you see, you can see from here, classical approach, right? So under these three approach, classical approach, there are three important people are there. Under that, there are three important people under classical perspective. So these three gurus, we call them as Frederick Wilson Taylor, Maximilian Weber, and Henry Fayol. And they developed three concepts. And now all these theories of classical approach, they concern about few things. As a manager, what is his role? He more or less highlighted the concept of formal hierarchy of authority and the efficiency of an organization are key focus areas of the classical approach. But they want efficiency as well as hierarchy. These are the areas. Under these three areas, there are three main approaches include in this is theories, three theories. We call them as scientific management theory, administrative management theory, and bureaucratic management theory. So some textbooks explain two approach, as scientific and administrative management theory. Under administrative management theory, people are talk about Henry Fayol and Max Weber, right? But we may consider three approach under classical theory. Right. Now let's look at it. Some of the approaches. Right. Now who is this person? Call them as Frederick Winston Taylor, right? What Taylor, in fact, he is born in USA, in Peninsula Council, in 1856, March 20th. He born on that day, and actually he's belong to a certain rich family. But once he reaches 18 years, and he joined one organization as an operational assistant after 18 years, right? After 25 years, he became an mechanical engineer, and from operational assistant is become mechanist forward, and he after 25 years, after 7 years, he became a degree holder and he's become a director in 1901 in this state, right? Okay, and then so that is the history of Vincent Taylor. You need to understand that also. And in 1911, he basically written a book called Principles of Scientific Management. That is what still we are using. And in 1950, after 59 years of old, and he was admitted to the hospital, and then very next day, and he was dead in 1915, March 21st. The day he born was 1956, March 20, and dead on in 1950. So that's the some life pattern of Frederick Taylor. Now, what we need to know, not that, but just to get an idea about what is talk about, right? And now, during this period, as we explained to you, the main issues in an organization is a poor productivity. Poor productivity. That is the issue, right? And he discussed why we discussed this entire classical approach, talk about inefficiency. And he said, why people are, or why labor inefficient, right? We have identified three important reasons for that. One is purposely work below the capacity. Now, sometimes you also do like that, no? Purposely work below the capacity. Now, why they work like that? They have a fear if you're going to work more, that means they are losing the job. That is, they are purposely work below their capacity. That is what you call in terms is soldiering, right? Soldiering. Second one is old rules of thumb methods. What do you mean by old rules of thumb methods? That means when you're going to do the work, we are using old passions, old way of doing things, right? Now, the traditional way of doing, old passion, time consuming and things like that. Third reason of the inefficiency of people, they have identified the lack of motivation to the working condition, the method they use it, right? I mean, they don't have a much way in the working environments to motivate them to work hard. And also, the method of selection people to that job is not doing correct way, right? And therefore, Taylor identify these weaknesses in business organization. Therefore, he tried to come up with some new ways. And as explained, Taylor observed that the factories are run without having any scientific mechanism. And even for employees' movement, unnecessarily wasting time. And they are not using a correct methods, a scientific methods to do their job. And they said, therefore, he is identified to find out solution for these three inefficiency issues. He said, you can improve the efficiency and improve the productivity. And he said, he treated man like a machine. Now let's look at it. What are the 4 principles of Taylor? Right? What are the principles that Taylor has identified? Every job should be broken into elements, and you can use in a more scientific method and to do better. And also they talk about management should cooperate with workers to ensure that all work is done in accordance with the scientific principle. So we have to educate the employees, everything. We can improve the efficiency through with some scientific principle. And he also talk about when you take people to the organization, and a worker should be scientifically selected with the right attitude to job. And also we must train them to do the work. So therefore, he said, if you practice these principles, you can improve the efficiency. And he introduced piece of work system. Caligana gave him a quota system. Every employee need to do this type of quota system. Then he tried to do the standardizations of work methods. He discussed time study, production planning, cost accounting. All this he may concentrated on. And he's the first guy who introduced even today's performance-based remuneration system. A lot of banks are now these days are using performance-based remuneration system. Actually, the Taylor is the first guy who has identified that. Concentrating on more performance-based value employee. Because of this concept, Taylor said that we can address these issues by practicing scientific management theory. Everything you can do like that, you can improve. Now, what is the output? There's a lot of issues came. Employee unrest, labor unrest, people lost jobs. Now, during this time, with the Taylor introduced this in his organization, is around 400 people have work to do the same job. He reduced to 140 people. So that means around 260 people job lost to the industry. So because of this, his management scientific technique, in 1901, he had issues with his own colleagues, right? In fact, he has to left that organization because of he has fighting with his own people, other peers, because of the market under situation, right? Okay, so he is the guy who introduced the two concept called a specialization. If the guy is want to do the same job over and over again, specialization concept introduced. And he said one person cannot do the entire job. He may break it down, the activity, into different units. And that principle we'll call divisions of work. So divisions of work and specialization are initiated by, even you are today using, by Patrick Vincent Taylor. That is why we call him as father of scientific management. But he said everything you can do in some proper manner, in some scientific way. Even today we have a factory company, garment industry is involved of the scientific management, right? Okay, so how scientific methods management to be implemented? But he said developing standard method for performing each jobs. But he has done it. Selecting workers with appropriate abilities for each job. Train them to do that job. Supporting workers to do that job. And providing wage incentives or monitoring to workers to increase their output. So these are some of the scientific management techniques used by Taylor or introduced to the management. Some of the things still we are using. And this is what you call the Frederick Taylor scientific management theory under classical approach. Right? I think you understood the rationale behind this scientific management approach or theory. Right? Now there's a lot of criticism came from the scientific management. What are the drawbacks? So workers having to adhere to fixed methods and procedure. Why? So you need to do the same job over and over again. As employers pay for related output workers. Now every employee cannot do the same way every day because employee is getting older, they are having some fatigue, some days he cannot work hard. Based on that, they are maybe due to illness or something. So as a result, because of the repetitive nature of work, so you cannot contribute the same output. Why? Your output is related to your payments. So every person cannot work like that. And that is the main issue. Now, what has happened? As a result of that, As a result of that, specialization is good, but what happened? Over specialization. Now you see, productivity, you do the same job is go like that, one day it comes down. Over specialization. Why? Boring. Doing the same job over and over again. One. Second, job stress. Job stress. That also increasing, productivity increasing, the stress increase, after some time is come down. We need to have a stress, but it's too much of stress, productivity comes down. So these are some of the criticism of scientific management theory. And it ignores the individual differences. Some are young, some are healthier, and routine job. And it reduces the social power of the workman. People like to work together than doing the individual. Here are the most important things. This entire theory talk about individual performances. Individual performances. Right? Okay. So that's, I explained to you very brief what do you mean by Taylor's scientific management theory. Right? I hope you have any questions on that. Okay, tell me you understood Taylor scientific management theory. Are the theory huh? Right. Okay. So then we moving to the next theory within the same. Okay. Before that, I want to tell you that also. Now, there are three guys, three scientists, right, who are contributed to the scientific management which was used by Frederick Taylor earlier. After the Frederick Taylor, they also concentrate on more on a scientific management. That is why I call other key contributors to the scientific management. As your name implies, you see Frank Gilbert and Lillian Gilbert. Definitely, either your sister or, you know, they are husband and wife. Yes, Frank also started with his career as a, what you call a bricklayer, gadol kapande kochit. But he educated and became a engineer. And the Lillian is more educated than Frank. And Lillian is a professor in a university, and both married together and in 1904, right? Now see, right? That is, you can see the Gilbert is dead at 1924, but Lillian was left believed for 1972. Now, but I want to tell you, despite the fact of they have involving with lot of management activities, mind you, they don't have missed their life, personal life also. According to the books, talks, they have 12 children in their life. While they are doing the manager job, they do the other part as well. These Frank and Lillian also had 12 children while this shorter period, while they are working scientific work. So take an example from them, you as well. Right. Now what they have done it. Now what Taylor has done it, they look at it, how can a work do in a scientific manner, improve the efficiency, you know. And these two gentlemen and a lady try to address, modify that work study by developing motion study. So they take the photos of each person's behavior and see how they can further reduce the activities of all these people. That is called, and these guys through the from motion study, they have, every person may have prime, we have identified something you need to understand, right? Prime motions, we have 18 motions, we call them as doublings. That means every person, when you're going to do the particular job, they take 18 motions. But these people try to look at it, the entire activities, motions, they try to reduce all these motions, 4, 18 to 4, 5, like that. Now, say for an example, we'll take cook example, right? What he has done it, if all the ingredient is close by him, he don't want to go and collect ingredient from different places. The time for motion is reduced. Right now, say for mason bars, all things are here. Valley gain තවදුරක, gadol gain තවදුරක, siminti gain තවදුරක ගියාම, will take more time to bring all these things. But if you all things are very close to each other, you have ways, save timing to bring those items for you. So that is what they have developed. All the activities, they look at it, how particular job can reduce the time frame. That is what you call motion study. So that also scientific management. That is how Frank and Lillian try to achieve. So what they have done, basically try to reduce the fatigue. ඇවිදීම නිකන් ඇවිදින්න ගියාම යන කාලය අඩු වෙනවා. Like in animal husbandry, right? In animal husbandry, you know what you mean by animal husbandry. These cows and all, they are not allowed to move, no? Right? They are in the same place. The moment you walk, cows are walking, mean what happened? They are losing the energy. That energy, what they are losing, cannot be converted to the milk output. So the moment you are stuck in a one place, output, the milk is increased. So sometimes we'll tell අපි එක තැනම ඉඳලා කාලා මහත් වෙලා. Some people are telling, right? So, but people will think, if you are in the same place, we have some other issues, mental issues. So in order to prevent that, if you go for any dairy farm, please look at it. So they have 2 bars here, and these cows are there in between. They can't move here and there because they want to spend energy for moving. They want to make use of that energy, take output. Now, because of mental thing, in the flow, there is a rotating circle. While cow always eating, and this the chain is going on, rotating. So then the cow will think he is going, right? Those are the techniques used. Okay, right. So that's the Frank Gilbert, Lillian Gilbert thinking, still using in certain industries today, a scientific way, right? All are contributed to scientific management theory developed by Taylor. The other guy is the Henry Gant. Now, still we discuss about the Gantt charts that also are some modifications of scientific management technique, right? And in fact, Gantt as a draftsman, and he's moving to the mechanical engineer, end up with management consultant in regard. Now, what he introduced the planning schedules of a project. What activities you can simultaneously carry out. Any process, there are 2-3 activities you can simultaneously carry out. You don't wait for first step to finish to start the second step. Yes, identify what are the areas simultaneously you carry out to do the particular job. He has discussed about the time taken to do the particular job. Monitor the progress. Still today in the business organization, we are using Gantt charts based on scientific theories. Now, say for an example, banks. I'll tell you how banks use the Gantt chart. Can anybody tell me how banks use the Gantt charts? Can anybody tell me how bank using the Gantt charts? Any activity banks are using? Can anybody tell me? Gayan, can you tell me? Now, banks are using Gantt charts. Okay, I'll give you another example, then you will understand. Think about one-day services. One-day services by our showing identity card, or maybe showing our passport. There's a one-day services. If they wait one activity to start the second activity, you cannot give it within the 1 day, right? So therefore, remember, it has to be parallelly being carried out all these activities. In banks also like that use Gantt charts. Can you tell me any activity you can use the Gantt charts in the banks? Now, a lot of banks are telling you can get a housing loan within 1 day or within 24 hours, within 2-3 days, business hours, 24 hours, like that. No, so, right? Earlier we have to wait for maybe uh, maybe uh, 1 month, maybe 2 months to get a loan. Now today there may be loans can be taken for within couple of days. That because of you are using certain activities, you are using parallelly, right? But who is the person who's introduced this concept is Henry Gant. Okay, so you see some of the techniques what we have learned long ago, still we can use it, right? I think now we have understood the other than the Winston Taylor, who contributed to the scientific management. Right. The next classical theory, a classical approach, the second concept introduced by the person called who? The Henry Fayol. Now, Henry Fayol, we considered him as a father of management. Father of modern management is Peter Drucker. Father of scientific management is Winston Taylor, Frederick Winston Taylor. But father of management is we considered him as a Henry Fayol. Now, why? Now, his concept is something, see, look at it in a different. He considered, now earlier theories, we concentrating on a particular person. But Fayol is considered, he focus on, if you want to improve the efficiency or the productivity of an organization, we need to look at it, the entire organization rather than the individual person, individual performance. That is his concentration. Based on that, he said, and in fact, he has introduced the thing called the principle, 14 principles of management. 14 principles of management. Some of the principles still we are using. 14 principle. He is, in fact, is the French person, and in fact, he is born in 1841 and then in 1925, and during that period, he was contributor. Now, this centrifugal period is 1864 to 1920, mean that is the period he is basically contributed to the management theory. But he was born in 1841 and then in 1925, right? So, period is 1864, 1920, mean is contributing period to the management. And he is the first guy also identify some functions of management: planning, organizing, commanding, coordinating, control. Some of the planning activities was developed. Now, there's a very much criticism to Frederick Taylor scientific management theory, you know. So once these theories of 14 principles developed by Henry Fayol, let's look at it. What are these principles he has identified? These are the principles. Now, divisions of labor. So he took some of the thing for some of this. That is why there are some similarities. Specialization. Divisions of labor, he took into his concept. Authorities took into the concept, like earlier. And we discuss about the discipline. Employee must obey and respect the rules govern the organization. Unity of command. Every employee should receive order from only one supervisor. Organization should have a plan, actions to works with subordinates. And your objectives supersede organizational objectives. So organizational objectives supersede your personal objectives. And they must pay a considerable amount. Some of the decisions you need to pay in centralized. Always respect line of authority, top management. People and material should be in the right place at the right time, right? So then equity. So we need to kind and fair to their subordinates. There are no any favoritism, nothing. A stability of tenure of personnel. Management should provide orderly personal planning, ensure that replacements are available to fill vacancies, right? Then initiatives. So encourage initiatives. Esprit de corps mean basically it's called the unity, the team spirit, right? So within the organization. Those are the 14 principles introduced by Henry Fayol. Now, because of Frederick Taylor's concept, we discussed a lot of the unrest situation, a lot of issues in the labor unrest and the lost lot of jobs. So during that time, people have a very much bad feeling about managements of scientific management theory. So once the Frederick Fayol joined an organization and he tried to implement about these 14 principles, the organization practiced these 14 principles has shown is an improvement in productivity. Fayol, he joined a particular organization and tried to apply, and he has applied those principles in his organization. This organization productivity improved. Then the other people thought, we must also use these principles, thereby we can improve our productivity. So that also a success. The other organization used these theories, also improve. That is why they got a lot of support for this theory. But some of the principles still we are using. Some of the principles, in fact, is introduced by Taylor, but not in the same way. But he has critically identified the 14 principles. One difference is look at the organization rather than the individual person. Hierarchy, chain of command, all things are there. Discipline, all things are there. Right? Okay. That is the 14 principles of Maya. Right? So he also considered as Henry Fayol is also considered as the classical theorist. Right. Now, after that, there's another classical approach theory developed. He's from what you call the German sociologist, and he said the bureaucratic process. The company should have, what he said, rules, regulations, and procedures. Even banks, we discuss about internal controls, breaching internal controls. We learned a lot of things about the internal control. Activations of dormant theories, opening of our safe or locker facility, to signing for releasing the checks, accounting, all companies should have a rules and regulations and procedures. So that is bureaucracy to some extent, and is a key element of management. So German sociologist Max Weber, who born in 1864, 4th 21st, and as a lawyer, and he was suffered pneumonia and died in 1920, June 14. So that's for this little bit of history. He said, what is bureaucratic management theory I talk about? He has identified three types of organization. Three types of organization during that time. One organization we have seen, we call him as a charismatic organization. We call it singular Anuhas. Now, this organization's success and authority based on the personality of the leader. Now, he has an exceptional superhuman powers, particular person. There are some charismatic organizations. The organization based on certain characteristics of a leader, based on the personal power. There are some other organizations we call traditional organization. Success based on the tradition and authority based on the preceding and customs. That means, so past experiences, charita vartya anuva tamai, so that organization is. There are another type of organization is noted that there's some legal rational organization. So there is an authority is based on rational. Now, what do you mean by the rationale? Mean objectives and goals and are clearly identified and defined. Legal mean rules and procedures and authority are well established. Now, this type of organization, we call them as bureaucratic organizations. Right? There are some organizations, good organizations. Now, let's look at it. What are the characteristics of this organization? What are the characteristics of bureaucratic organization? One, we say clear chain of command. Organization have a clear chain of command. Division of labor. Right? So, then rules and regulations are govern actions. Whatever you need to do, there's a rules and regulation. Specialization and competence determine structure. Competence determine mean the technical expertise or technical competencies. Now, appointments are to the positions based on technical competence. Nobody is going to take outside that. Then we have a relationship are impersonal. There's no personal relationship. So clearly defined objectives and goals. These are the characteristics of a bureaucratic organization. So what Max Weber talk about, if you follow these things, the organization is a successful organization. Now, some of the things also you noted that are also in the Taylor, also in the Fayol, and also in the Max Weber. Right? That is why we call these are similar theories, but pooling them to one approach. That approach is called classical approach, but the concentration placed on certain activities are more on different type of organization. Right? But in today, even today, organizations follow this, especially the government institution. Even banks are to some extent. So we are not do anything apart from our circulars, because people are telling you to do, I will look after, but something happened, that person is not looked after. Right? So still we are using rules and regulation despite the fact of president is telling the government people, you do these things like that, but people are a little bit of reluctant because of ultimately, personally he has to pay the consequences. Right? So what are the advantages of bureaucratic organization? There's a consistency of employee behavior. There's a blueprint. Everybody has to behave like that. No conflicts between duties and responsibilities. Because of the hierarchical structure, every employee may be behaving the same. There's a procedure to follow, rules and regulation. We have our manuals. There's some little bit of advantage of specialization. So, but still, there is a disadvantage. Rigid rules and red tape, one factor, especially in the government sector. Protections of authority, slow decision making. Now, you know the slow decision making. This is very much in the foreign banks in Sri Lanka. So, if you want to get something, they want to discuss with their head office people, then only they give permissions to do whatever. So that bureaucratic nature is very much in foreign bank in Sri Lanka. Slow decision making. Incompatibility with changing technology. So because of the nature of hierarchy and the professionals' value, lack of order, there are some disadvantages as well as advantages of these theories. Right? Okay, now we have just completed the classical theory. What are the classical theory? Who are the contributors? Frederick Winston Taylor introduced scientific management theory, supported by Frank Gilbert and Lillian Gilbert and Henry Gant. And the second one we'll discuss about Henry Fayol, who introduced 14 principles of management. And then the bureaucratic organization structure or management, who introduced one is Max Weber, is a German guy, a sociologist. And all these organizations, all these management theories show some similar characteristics. That is why they put into the one category. Right. Now, I'll give you very quick activity, 3 minutes, 3-minute activity. 3-minute activity. Right. Now, if you understood, can you put, these are the 12 points. Now we have learned 3 concepts, 3 theories: classical perspective, scientific principle, bureaucratic principle, administrative principle. Administrative principle, Henry Fayol; bureaucratic principle, Max Weber; scientific principle, by Taylor. Now here, the left-hand corner, you are get the 12 ideas. Can you plot into these 3? Now, for example, I'll just give you an example. Before we'll wind up for a break, small exercise whether you understood or not. Quick activity. Now, say for an example, 3 functions of management. Where are you going to put it? Functions of management, you are definitely going to put under three numbers comes under administrative. Likewise, can you fill? I give you 3 minutes and try to put these informations to these three fonts. Now, example I gave you. Number three has to go to administrative principles. Why? That is the Henry Fayol has identified the functions of management. Right. Can you do that exercise with your existing knowledge? Okay, are you ready? Okay, can you do that, please? Isivara, can you put that points? Number එක විතරයි දාන්න. හරි. ගයාන්, චම්පික, කරුණාරත්න, Paran, Kavindra, right? Can you put this one? Okay, can you do that, please? Right, try to do it, right? What we have learned, try to put it to these three principles. I'll just give you 1-2 minutes. Example 3, definitely you need to go to administrative principle. Likewise, now where is 1 going? Where is 2 going? There's more than 1, right? These are the things we learn. These are belong to one of these 2 perspectives. I'll give an example. Okay, try to do, and before we go for break. ඒ කියන්නේ මේ concept තුනට මේ පැත්තේ තියෙනේවා දාන්න. දැන් අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම administrative principle එකට එන්න ඕනේ 3 points නේද? 3 එන්න එපායි. මං කියන එක තේරෙනව නේද? ඔයගොල්ලෝ මේ exercise එක කරනවද මාත් එක්ක නැත්නම් සද්දයක් නැහැනේ. ඔයගොල්ලෝ ඉන්නව නේද line එකේ? සද්දයක් දාන්න කොහොමද හරි නෑ වගේ. Hello? ඔයගොල්ලෝ අහන් ඉන්නව නේද? Are you listening to me? Nobody.
Yes, sir.
All right. දැන් මේක වැඩි කරගෙන මේ ඉන්නේ බල ඉන්නේ කරලා දාන්න පුළුවන්.
Yeah, we are doing.
All right, good. Okay. Scale of chain mean unity of command, right? Chain of command. promotion to be given based on technical expected competence, right? 6, encourage people by giving money for their work or output. Performance promotions to be given based on technical competency. Okay, right? So I've done. So we will see the answers. Okay, there. How did the Balamu the answers, Tiga? Huh? How did the Balamu there? So there, Nanny. Right. Okay, let's look at it now. The answers. Now, what you want to know, select one from here and put here number 1, 2, like that. Okay, let's see the answer. Okay, whether to what extent you have understood. So, if you can answer, if you can put down this clearly, that means you understood at the classical perspective exactly the correct way. Let's look at it. Right? See whether your answers is same. 2, treat employee like machines is a scientific principle, right? You understood. Okay, there is no 2 there any other place. Then take the 6, encourage people by giving money for their increasing output, right? So increasing output, so that is 6, also like Taylor, right? Then 7, standard method of doing for each job, who discovered? Taylor again. Then the 11th one, improve individual efficiency. And then you look at it, bureaucratic principle, that is 1, have rules and procedure. Then what is 4, organizational structure, hierarchy and things like that. Then number 10, scalar of chain, and 12, promotions to be given based on technical performances, right? Then look at it, administrative, what is that Henry Fayol is said, functions of management is the Henry Fayol. 5, departmentalization, yes. 8, unity of focus on entire organization, unity of command, one of the principles of management is 9. I hope you put the correct way, right? හරිද ඔක්කොටම ආව තේරුණාද? කී දිනෙකට හරියට දැම්මද? කවුරු හරි කියන්නකෝ. කී දෙනෙක් හරියට දැම්මද? Any guesses? ගයාන් මොකද කියන්නේ, හරිද? ගයාන් හරිද? සද්ද නෑනේ. චම්පික හරිද දාපේවා? Right.
Yes, sir.
ගයාන් කොහමද? කවින්ද්‍රත් okay, right. ගයාන් ළමගේ voice එකක්වත් ඇහෙන්නේ නෑනේ. කොහොමද ළමයි ඊශ්වරා. Yeah, ඊශ්වරා කොහමද? ලියු ඉසිවර, sorry. ඉසිවර හරිද? ඉසිවර ඉසිවරගේ කටහඬ හරි not all. I'll come up there. No problem, but you got some points in it. Hari, no problem. Not all, but you understood the concept. So that means we just completed the, now we have to learn some more theories, right? Today we are going to discuss the role of a manager and some management thoughts that why planned. So we will have a break. Now is 10:45. We may join again around 11:05, 11:10, right? Okay, so see you again 11:10. We'll have a break and come back 11:05, 11:10. Okay, so I will start sharply at 11:10. Okay, thank you for waiting for these 2 hours. So we will continue the balance part quickly as possible. Right. Uh, okay, so what we have discussed up to now, we discussed the scientific management theory, then administrative theory and bureaucratic theory, which are comes under classical theory, right? So now we may moving to uh, another concept. That concept we call them as the evolution of management. Now we discussed the classical perspective we have just completed. So then we moving to humanistic perspective. So humanistic perspective mean behavioral management theory, right? So under managerial theory, so they have criticized the other scientific management theory. So what they talk about, too much of bureaucracy, rules and regulation, treating employees like a machines, no human relationship, poor working condition, etc., etc., right? And this behavioral management theory, the two important guys, basically we call Chester Bernard is another early person, but rather than that, Mary Perker Follett or and Elton Mayo, right? Now what they have talked about, now managers need to understand the human behavior. Not only people considers like a machine, the humans needs and the attitudes in the workplace. So, and in this theory, in the humanistic perspective, or what you call the bureaucratic approach, value of people was highlighted. The people's value. People not to be considered as machines, but they must give value. So empowerment and facilitating were some of the other aspects uh, emerge through this approach, right? Now let's look at it, this approach, therefore, recognizing the organization as a collection of people with diverse behavior. You know, any organization, we discuss diversity. We are going to discuss a little bit of diversity, right? So people are have a different behaving characteristics, and people are full of different type of people. So study of how managers should behave to motivate employees, and through the motivation we are trying to get the work done, right? That is what behavioral management theory talks about. And but they things try to be with the employees. As a manager, you try to be with them personally, manage, and through motivation you can improve the productivity and efficiency, effectiveness of the organization. Now this is the main person who has the, carried out specifically for uh, this theory is called the behavioral theory, is one Mr. Elton Mayo. But remember, he is born in not in America, but he's born in Australia, right? Born in 1880, and then he died in 1949, right? Now he was migrated to USA from Australia, but he is basically a, uh, sociologist, a psychologist, basically psychologist, and also he was a writer, right? Remember, he was a writer. He wrote a lot of articles, novels, and things like that. Now he has carried out lot of experiments. Now, lot of experiments he has carried out, like in Hawthorne. Now, why we call Hawthorne? Hawthorne is a Chicago-based General Electric factory. Now, lot of studies or research has done related to the work environmental factors, right? Work environmental factors, and he has changed certain environmental factors and see how the employees are basically performs based on certain changing of certain factors, how it contributed to the basically the to the business. Right now I've just tried to explain uh, some of these studies, not in detail, but you need to get some idea only. He's the first guy who in fact disclosed the impact of informal groups, and then the norms, and then basically you name it, group work, informal group, social needs, teamwork, group attitudes, group norms, all these concepts we are today discussing in more greater length, pay more attention as a organizational behavior. We have an entire subject called organizational behavior, not in your case, organizational behavior. That is basically based on this Hawthorne study, right? Based on this Hawthorne study. Right. Now I just want to remind you something. Now next week we don't have a lectures, right? Remember, so you can enjoy yourself. So next Sunday, right? Now coming back to this Hawthorne study, actually this that first conducted in Chicago, Chicago Western Electric Company. There's a factory called Hawthorne Factory. So, so these studies was done for Hawthorne Factory. That is why we call Hawthorne studies, right? Okay, now let me explain to you what are the research or studies conducted by Elton Mayo, right? And mind you also, there are some research also. In fact, he is Elton Mayo is a professor of Harvard Business School, right? Remember, also, and there are some Hawthorne experiments done before Elton Mayo, but this is not concluded. So therefore, he started the further investigations of how certain factors impact the productivity. Okay, first we'll discuss about the test room experiment. Sometimes people are called elimination studies. Now, what this this experiment, right? Now, what they said, people are while they are working, they change the light intensity. Right now, we also telling no. We also telling if you want to study, you don't go for go for dark room. For better to go for little open space where you get the sunlight and all. And then they like that they will look at it. If changing the light intensity of the working place, right, and how it contributing to improve the productivity. Okay, right. Now, what is Elton Mayo has done it? Now, we have identified two type of groups. There's a control group, test group, right? Now, so providing, now there's a light changes. There are some people who have given the light, change the light intensity, but there are some group, there won't be any change in the light, the same light, they will work. That's the control. Test room means the changing the light intensity and all. And they saw people, um, people productivity, and they have found work behavior not change because of the human physical factors, but for there's some mental factors. People are still both, whether the control place where we don't have any changes to the light, but the organization changes the light, increase or decrease, group both are giving the same results. So that means the productivity increase not because of light factor, some other factor they have realized, right? And they also conducted another experiments we call relay room experiments. We call relay room experiments. We call relay assembly test rooms, another way. Now, all these experiments, why we call test room, relay rooms, and like that, that is the one place they have selected to conduct the experiment in the Hawthorne factory. That is what you call the relay room expert. There's nothing. That is the place. The place, there are people working in that like divisions. This is another area in the Chicago Western Electric Company. The experiment is carried out. Now, and this group, they did a different way, not the light. They took, now this is a, relay room experiment. It is consist of 5 ladies and a one supervision, 1 lady supervision and 5 ladies work. And they look at it changing their salary, right? And the incentives. And they look about the working day, how per day, 8 hours, 7 hours, 9 hours, right? And length of the rest time. Now, say for an example, the lunch break, some people are giving 30 minutes, some 1 hour, some 1.5 hours, and also the lights. And see how it impacted the productivity. If you change all these things, still you get the same productivity. So they found ultimately through the relay room experiments conducted in 1927 to 1929, they have noted that there is no relationship between these salary, working day, working hours, length of the length of the free time, or mean the rest time, is not factors contributing to the productivity. That is the results from relay room experiments. And they went into another the same factory, right? Same factory. They move into the interviews. So uh, they went into the interview, say from 1928 to 1931. So they interview Hawthorne, the Milton Mayo and his team interview around 21,000 employees, right? And so they talk about they interview these areas like employee attitudes, right? And the supervisions and the environmental factors. They ask questions and interview both verbally and in writing, ask from 21,000 employees about these factors: employee attitudes, supervision, environmental factors and all, and how it will impact the productivity. Now, the results of interviewing of 21,000 is a fairly good sample, which represent a lot of the population. They have noted that the special attention paid by care supervisor have an impact on productivity. Now, the supervisor's close relationship is basically improve the productivity. So that is today we talk about the Hawthorne um Hawthorne, what you call impact or Hawthorne effects, right? Okay, so Hawthorne effect is that. Now, there is some group dynamics, employee group dynamics. Now, how your supervisor is closely linked to your employee. So, those are the factors they talk about, which will contributing to the productivity of the organization employees. Then we conduct another experiment in the same way we call bank wiring observation group, another section. So they want to confer that now earlier what they have done is correct or wrong. The interview, the impact they receive is correct or further strengthened, right? Now, there, of course, they talk about the importance of the informal groups. Now, they also link to the productivity, they link to the peace-based incentive, right? But that is not the fees-based incentive is not relating to the productivity. Earlier it was related in the Winston's Taylor's this thing, but this price-based or incentives, piece-based incentives scheme not much relating to the, they produce the same, right? So therefore that also not the case. So then finally they identify some characteristics in the entire this Hawthorne study, what basically talk about, right? These are the factors. Employees would work harder if they believe that management was concerned about their welfare. So one factor. They think the management will look after them. That means they work hard. And supervisors also pay special attention to them. Organization is a social systems. Another aspect you look at is a social system, not mechanistic system, is a social system. Social needs are main motivator factor. So they have identified. And they talk about the teamwork. And they talk about the efficient communications is important. Now, these are the findings of Elton Mayo's Hawthorne experiment. Now, in order to get these final results, he has carried out lot of experiments like test room experiment, relay room experiments, interviews, bank wiring room experiments. So don't worry about that. What you need to know. So Mayo has done a lot of extensive experiments and research in the factory called Hawthorne belonged to Western Electric Company, one of the Chicago, one of the largest factory during that time in USA, and they had done a lot of research. Finally, he got the results of this. So all these contributions of Mayo ultimately is a boil down to some special concept of organizational behavior. One, they have identified the importance of group work, informal groups, importance of informal groups. That means within your formal group, there are some informal groups, right? While you're working there, now within your organization, say you are working for a branch, will you? But then you have a informal group. You go for lunch with these people. That's an informal group within the formal group. Formal group, your branch staff. That is the entire branch staff. Then you have another set of small group. This we call informal groups. It may be sometimes more powerful than formal group. You will think with whom you are going for a lunch. Within the branch, you have some sort of a clique. Clique And within the branch also you have an informal. Now you can understand the importance, how powerful these are. So those are the first time they identify um, in the contributions of Mayo's experiments, right? And as a manager, you need to understand while you're working in the branch, you must know who are the informal groups. So you need to address them properly, right? Okay, that is the importance of learning about these theories, right? So the group work, informal group, social needs, the teamwork, group attitudes, group norms. Otherwise, what happens? All these guys get together and say, "Ada hite inde pa vedeta," right? So what happened for you? So there may be a group norms and group behavior you need to understand really for branches, right? So all these are people considered as social element, right? They can motivate us to fulfilling the social needs, right? That is why sometimes we may have different, we will discuss all these things little later on in detail. Some social requirements, now these days you cannot do, but then Christmas parties, annual trips, all are conducted by for build up the social aspects of. Now how your boss will look after you, all these are important, and also the effective communication. So these are the very core of behavioral management theory, right? Okay, what are the criticism? Now remember, and this behavioral management theory further expanded will supported with other contributors like Maslow, Herzberg, McGregor, right? McLearns, all we are going to learn under motivation, right? But those are, remember, subsequently developed theories. Those are new theories, rather how these factors, these neo-human relationship approach. That means, so it's a part and the further extensions of behavioral management theory is called neo-human relation approach. So this approach we are going to discuss in more detail under leadership, right? Okay, that's what I'm not going to explain to you. Now let's look at it. What are the criticism? What are the criticisms of this behavioral management theory? So every theory has some criticism, mind you, right? So what are the criticisms of behavioral management theory? Now, too much emphasis and depends on human factor is also a little problem. You know, අපි කියන්නේ ඕනට වැඩිය හුරතල් කරන්න යන්න එපා කියලා. So that means they are not works like that. So there is something too much of emphasis and dependence on human factor, and over participation cause control problems. Like now, if you are trying to get the involvement of employees to take decisions, then also a problem. You can't control them, and they come up with ideas, sometimes overlook your ideas. Then, and also because of these behavioral complex behavior of workers, also sometimes may confuse managers. Now, what behavioral theories talk about is very difficult to understand, as we aware, as when we are discussing at human resource management later part in our course. Human factor is a very difficult to understand. Now you, that's of course you may have your own experience while you are working, also your wife or your girlfriend or your boyfriend. It's very difficult to understand, no? So some day is good, one day is bad. Why? That is the nature of the human behavior, right? That's you need to understand. Then the less productivity due to high social interactions and informal relations. Sometimes productivity will come because of you're going for a too much of social interactions and informal relationship, and that lead also for a lot of management problem. So organization thereafter may not consider as a system. We think it's a home. So there are some positive sides also, as well as the negative sides of this behavioral management theory. Okay, so we discuss about the second theory we call behavioral management theory. Now, that means we call behavioral management approach, right? So who are the main contributor into this study? Mainly Elton Mayo and Picard also can be considered under this behavioral theories. And latter part, a neoclassical theory, neo-human theory, we call them as Herzberg, Maslow's, and things also contribute. Right. So if you really compare between this, if you done a very comparison between classical and behavioral theories, the two type of approaches, if you really look at it, the classical approach, all approaches we thought worker as an economic man, whereas the behavioral approach, we consider worker as a social man. One difference. Second, now in the classic example, we use punishment, rules and procedures, maybe deadlines to motivate people. But behavioral approach, what we use, the motivational participations and teamwork to achieve your organization target. Basically, in the classical approach, we're going for autocratic leaderships oriented style. That means some sort of a dictatorships. But whereas the behavioral approach, we look at it more on a democratic leaderships oriented style. Then in classical approach, we have a rigid mechanistic structure, clearly define your hierarchy of level, chain of commands and all. But under behavioral approach, we look at it more of flexible organic structure like matrix structure and things like that. So here we have the classical approach. We have formal authority and relationship, where the behavioral approach, we have the formal, but more on pay attention for informal relationship, right? And classical approach, you usually get the individual incentives rather, and then the group incentives, right? Okay, so aggressive communication, we look at it from classical approach, whereas the behavioral approach, we look at it submissive communications, right? We are not very hard communication. It's a two ways of pay communication, whereas one way hard communications under classical approach. So we discussed now, earlier we discussed within the classical approach, what are the differences between classical theories. But now overallly, what is the difference between classical approach and behavioral approaches, right? So we will discuss all these things. What are the difference between classical and behavioral approach? Clear? Now we are just going through some of these approaches. First, classical, then you discuss the second is the behavioral approach. Right. Now we moving to the next approach, and that approach we call them as from classical perspective, humanistic perspective. Now we look at it from quantitative perspective. Now a quantitative perspective, in another terms, we talk about management science approach. What is that? Management science approach. Now that this is like a teledrama, it's very easy to remember. As a management student, you need to know all these things, right? Right. What is management science approach? Management science approach, actually it was initiated because of World War II, right? Because of World War II, all these use of these techniques are be used with the Second World War II in be used for war, and that further after that, after Second World War, we use those techniques which were used for war into the business. That is what you call management science approach. Here we are using some quantitative techniques, quantitative approach for decision making and effective utilizations of our resources. Right. For that, we heavily use the business areas. We learn in some other part, operational research or management science. So these are the areas we got the lot of uh, here we are using mathematics and statistics in management decision making for operational research, operational management, information technology. So these are the areas we are used for take some decision making. So like examples like linear programming, network analyzing, decision trees, transformations, mix, and those are some of the operational research, operation management techniques we use, which were used for the war, used for the business activities. Right now, these are some of the uh, quantitative science approach. Right, there's nothing much on that. Whatever we use for our war, specifically for mathematical and statistics or scientific techniques like expand you in the areas covered under operation research, operation management, information technology. So the techniques we use, we try to apply in the business level. That is what you call management science approach. What are the major drawback in this approach is it is very difficult to put it in everything, every management, right? And also, and it is very difficult to, you never talk about here in solving human relation problems, purely on mathematical. So therefore, human touch is not there, but there are sometimes we may use it for quantitative perspective or quantitative science techniques for our management activity, but it was developed in latter part in the after the World War II. Then we move into another important approach. We call them as system approach. We call them as system approach. So now let's look at it. What do you mean by a system approach? Now here, in fact, we discussed this one as earlier. View organization as a system. We discussed also earlier an organization, the systems. I told you our body is a classic example for an organization. Work as a system, right? That covers or convert input into output, right? Now, so say our body is really a system approach. So we have a lot of systems in our body, also subsystems. Entire system is our body. So we have a lot of subsystems work in interdependently components to each other. Now, say for an example, I'll give you a small uh, important thing. Now, when these our food is going from our digestive system, right? When it comes to for our certain places in the bodies, go to the certain areas. So then certain hormone is salivated and that was absorbed and converted to some of the food into the body and some are passing. Now, if the what you call sturge coming from again pistegula, so once it's come to here, so then the insulin is hormone is injected and those glucose it converted to the glucose and to the sugar. So if this insulin hormone is not salivated by the pituitary gland, is the hormone control organisms in our brain, whatever. So sugar is just passed from the our system. So if there is no sugar absorption, what happens? It is not absorbed to the system. So we have a lacking of sugar level in the body. So we have a side effect of because of that. So that means our body is a system. So our other parts are subsystems. Like, so there may be interdependent components. So if a good body mean we are in a healthy level living style mean our entire organization, like our system, is work interdependently to achieve our common goals. Otherwise, you also can live, but you won't get the final good results, right? And there, of course, through the system approach, we may come to a concept called synergy. That means concept, what you mean by a synergy is simply as the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, right? You know, it's a great. Now it's a simple example in our learning, in our Buddhist learning, is what you call vadujatiki. It's called the synergy. All work together, and the summations of individual is more than working alone. 1 plus 1 equal to more than 2 in the synergistic impact, right? And also you have subsystems, we call subsystem, parts of the system that depend on another part of their functioning. So, so the systems, once it's become open, we call them, and the system approach attempts to give managers way of looking at organization as a complete whole. So as managers, we need to understand organization as a system approach. That means you need to look at it overall aspect, and it has to be living with other parts, and also it has to be live with other other um other environmental. We deal with other factors we need to take into account. Now, if the systems is not response to the changing needs of the environments, right? Now, you know, the business, as we well aware, business is an open system because we need to get certain inputs from external environment. So therefore, organization need to adapt to changes in the environment which is taking place. If any system, mind you, if any system not do, that means do so. So if you are not response to the changes taking place in the external environment, naturally what happen is going to die, right? If any systems uh, not adapting to the changes, naturally it's going to die. Now this concept we call, if a system which is not adapting to the changes in the environment, we call entropy. Remember the word entropy, ENTROPHY, we call entropy, right? Any system which is not falling in line with the external environments going to die naturally. And this approach we call them as these systems we call them as this concept, in fact, we call them as the entropy, ENTROPHY, entropy, right? Entropy, right? You need to understand. So then, so the business organizing as a system, right? We collect lot of input, and you know, you converted to output, right? That's a system. Okay, so here there are 5 components for a system approach. As we discussed, inputs, this inputs put into the information process, and then these info, once you done the transformation and it is going out from the organization, is called output. And we look at the results or something from the feedback, and then environment. So we need to work in the surrounding organization. So every system have these 5 components, right? Remember that we need to have an inputs, transformation process, output, feedback, environment, right? Any systems we need to look at it, these point. That is what you call systems thinking, right? as relationship among the part, and as a system, managers must understand subsystem within the organization, then the interdependence, which ultimately give you a synergistic and focus of big picture, right? So need to understand the system approach to management. Okay, I hope you understood on that. Then we may look at it another approach we call contingency approach. Now we discuss classical perspective, humanistic perspective, quantitative perspective. We discussed a little while ago is the system perspective. Now we look at another approach we call contingency approach. Now, what is contingency approach is talk about? Basically, there is no one right form of structure or any management system for us to apply. Right now, we learn a lot of approaches now. What what the contingency approach is, there is no any specified right structure or management system. Now, it depends refers to the immediate circumstances. අර කියන්නේ යන පැත්තට ගහ උළු අස්සද මොකද්ද කියලා තියෙන්නේ. ආන්නේ. So contingency refers to the immediate circumstance. Given the situation, your management approach has to be changed. Right? So as a manager, try to systematically to identify which technique or the approach will in a particular circumstances best contribute to the attainment of desired goal. So you as a manager, so don't stick to the one of the approach, you look at it. What is the approach is more good? Now, example. Now we learned earlier theory X and Y under McGregor. There are some people who are not willing to work. They want free time. We want to direct them every time. So there are some group, there's someone called X group, there are some type of employee, right? We may have, so we don't want to tell them to work. They always initiative, they will work independent, they lack supervision, they willing to work hard and all. That is a why. So what is the approach we are using? Right? Under given situation, these people are not using. We may use some bureaucratic approach. We are using some autocratic approach for Y, X, and we are using some democratic approach for Y. Autocratic approach to X, the people who are not working. So your management style, your management way is differ because of the given situation. Right? So that is what you call contingency approach. I hope you understood that part as well. Then we be moving to the another approach we call contemporary approaches. That means today's approaches for an organization, a management. Right? Today's approaches. But even though we call contemporary, it's not so all. So we call them as contemporary approach. So first approach we are going to learn under here, we call Japanese management approach. Japanese management approach. You know, in 1945, during the August, so there may be a bomb held by nuclear bomb held by the other people to Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and we are around close to 200 or 130,000 people dead because of this. The people, also children born after that also there is a lot of issues. But if you really look at is the Japan about the last, now is 1945, now 75, 85, 95, last 30-40 years, right? Okay, So Japan has changed a lot. Now they are one of the biggest powerful country in the world. Now what makes them to come to today's situation? So some people are saying just because of the management approach used by Japanese, one of the reasons. So therefore we try to identify what is the Japanese use to improve their performances. That concept we call Japanese management approach, right? And and it is true that culture specific approach, but what are the features in this approach? One approach, lifetime employment. Right now, this is a questionable now because now Japanese people are now anymore lifetime employed. But that's the approach talk about. Once you join the organization, you may be there till you die or you get retired. And one of the important factor here in the Japanese management and is a collective decision making, not individuals like Americans and the Western countries are more or less individual decision making, right? But Japanese adapted more or less collective decision making, right? And they look at it the slow evolutions and promotion, but importantly, collective responsibility. If something happens, everybody take the responsibility. But slow evaluations and promotion, very difficult to get in up to. So take more time. Implicit control mechanism. What do you mean by implicit control mechanism? Means nobody is there to control yourself. You yourself become a control person. So that is what you call implicit control mechanism. And it's very difficult, non-specialized career path. There's no any career, specialized career path. Anybody can do anything, right? And holistic concern of employees. The employee may look at it not only for one area, we will look at its holistic approach to employees. So these are the some of the characteristics of Japanese management. And later that was further developed by introducing the total quality management. So it was started in 1940s, but in 1980s and 1990s, this TQM program adapted by Japanese are much popular for their management approach, right? And what is total quality management? So they look at it, integrate high quality value at each activity. Whatever they produce, they come up with quality, right? That is why we say Japan quality. But everybody have a perception called this is China quality, this is Thailand quality, this is Singaporean quality, this is Indian quality, and this is Japanese quality. If you say Japanese quality, so we have some value for that, right? And for that, they involve focuses on customer, employee involvement, benchmarking. They are compared with other similar industry and other industry. So lot of things happening in total quality management. We will discuss little bit of total quality management later part of the syllabus. There we discuss about the 5S system, then quality circle systems, then we discuss Kaizen, we discuss about JIT system, just in time, and we discuss about Kanban systems like that. There are a lot of total quality management concepts developed by the Japanese, and they introduced the Japanese management approach, right? This is another approach in the management, contemporary. Right. Then we move into now is a Toyota way. So this is how Toyota companies, whatever they look at it, they will look at it product quality and these things like that, right? And then another approach. Before that, I want to tell you something. Once these one this sorry once this Japanese management approach, so the theory is called William Auchi. William Auchi, Ouchi. William Auchi, the scientist called William Auchi. It is not in your handout, but I want to explain that also. He tried to look at it, the American management style, what we have learned. And he has studied the Japanese management approach. And he tried to combine these together. And he come up with the Z theory. What he has done it, the William Auchi has done it, is combine Japanese management approach with American approach. Right? And combine these two, some of the good things from the Japan management approach, some of the good things at the American approach, put together, and they form, we call Z theory. Right? Now, say for an example, usually for work life, for American style, short, right? And Japanese long. So Z theory also look at it better to have some time employees to be work in the given organization. Second factor is the decision making, right? Now we discuss more or less American management decision making is done by individual, but in Japan is a collective. So therefore, Z theory look at it, which one is the better out of these two? They do collective decision. So then we call the responsibility. Responsibility, in the American, individual take the responsibility. We discuss Japan's, the responsibility is taken care by everybody, or what you call a collection responsibility. But in Z theory of William Auchi, they think better to get rather than collective. They took a good thing from the A, that is from American management, they took individuals. Likewise, some of the good things we selected from both styles, both management concept, and put into the Z theory by the theory called Z theory by the William Auchi, right? So just gets an idea. There's some in between Z theory concept, right? So what they have done it, they took some good thing from American management approaches and good thing from Japanese approach and come up with Z approach. Right. Then another contemporary theory approach is we call excellence in business approach. Now, actually, this was happened in somewhere in 1982s, right? Very recent. So, and there's a research done by uh, two scientists. We call them as Tom J. Peter, or we call Tom Peter. I think you may heard about this Tom Peter, and Robert S. Waterman. Right? When we did MBA, so we are more use this concept, right? So for excellence in business approach. Now, what happened in? So he come up with in search of excellence. That means they have they have done 500 Fortune companies. They done a research for around 500 companies, and they identify how these companies what perform better than with other companies. And they have identified 7 approach, seven S approach, and the approach of excellent management having practice in this business organization. So they have identified, so once you identify these management approaches, 7 approach, so these particular organizations doing well. And that is what you call excellence in business approach, right? So let's look at it. What are those 7 attributes of excellent organization as developed by Tom Peter and Robert Waterman in the books called In Search of Excellence. In Search of Excellence. Actually, this concept was further developed by Nancy Austin. Passion for Excellence, a book further developed, right? Okay, so the approach is this. They have looked at it around 500 organizations, America, which are contributed very well or that they are performing well. And they have identified what are the key factors these organizations are adapting. And they identify these 7 factors and they say these are the management approach. If you want to be excellent in the marketplace, these specific activities or attributes your organizations need to do. So what are these things? One is getting things done on time. So you need to do it, the things at correct. Next, you must be close to the customer. Whatever you do, you must look at it, what customers want. Listening and learning from customer. That is what you call getting close to the customer. Right? Third factor we call promoting autonomy and leaderships. Innovations, risk-taking, expected way of doing things. So you evaluate promoting autonomy and leaderships, entrepreneurships. So if the organization promote these things in the organization is performed well. Next, maximum productivity through people, treating staff as sources of quality and productivity, right? So they have pay more attention to people. The fifth factor these excellent organizations identify, simple from lean organization. So what do you mean by the lean organization? Mean very simple, very flexible organizational structure, right? So structure is very flexible, very lean, right? That's another. Why lean? Because it is very easy for flexible, changing to the needs of the environment. So, and there's no any perfect management, but they look at it hands-on approach to management. So that means value-driven management with top management, keep in touch with frontline. Always there is a close relationship with the frontline and the top managers. So they will support frontline people to carry out their people. So through that is what you call stick to the knitting, that is staying close to what you know and what do well. That is the concept they use here. Management by walking around, right? Management by walking around. Now, this is also you can do in your branch. Say you are a manager in the branch, what you can do, management by walking around. So you go to the places where your employees are working, go to the counter, go to the cashiers, go to the back office, go to the middle office. Like that, you be with them. So that is the concept we call management by walking around. Right? These are the some of the management approach used by so-called this excellent organization. So that is what you call excellence in business approach. Right? Those are contemporary, that means the present day theories. Now, these organization research have done these activities, that's why they are in that number. Right? And there is another organization is called a technology driven workplace. That is, many organizations today are basically work on electronic way, machines and all. There we discuss today some of the organizations like we call modular. Then we discuss about the virtual organization. Uh, all these approaches are what you call the new technology driven workplace approaches, right? We discuss in hollow, right, modular, right, and boundaryless structures based on this concept. You use lot of outsourcing, you use lot of supply chain management activities, customer relationship management techniques for do your management. Then we discuss about the dynamic engagement approach. They are of course same like earlier. So we are using a lot of re-engineering, diversity of workforce, and things like that. And that's uh, another approach, but it's not much. But we need to know all these things. And finally, we may look at it, but there is some other approach we call them as uh, Sri Lankan management approach. So when reviewing the literature on Sri Lankan management approaches, now it can be clearly identified that systematic methods or theorizations of management practices are hardly found in written history. So we also have some Sri Lankan way of managing, but it is not in written down book form. But we have some variety of management practices used by the Sri Lankan to get the works done from our employee. Right? So these are some of the approach. And today we talk about the knowledge management approach, where we talk about organization is today we develop based on the knowledge, how important your knowledge. That's also another important approach. What you're trying to do, so you are trying to every time develop the knowledge about the employees. All right. So these are the some novel concept, but don't worry about knowledge. I will explain you all these things later on. Right. Okay. So now the next 20 minutes, so we are trying to finish. Who is the manager? Now we discuss up to now what are the organizational approaches, right? Just to summarize organizational approach in a very nutshell. So we discussed with the classical approach. We discussed three approach. One approach is from Frederick Taylor, scientific management, father of scientific management. So where we discuss four principles, right? Right. And how they want to get the work done. Then we discuss about the administrative concept or approach, or sorry, rather than approach is a theory developed by Henry Fayol. And then, and before that, Frank Elizabeth, Lillian Elizabeth also contributed. Henry Ford Grant also contributed to the scientific management. Then we discuss the second approach is called administrative concept, Henry Mayon. And then we move into the bureaucratic structure that was developed by Max Weber. And from the classical approach, we move into the behavioral approach, and there are two persons specifically in that is Elton Mayo. So Elton Mayo conducted a lot of experiments, and then in the Hawthorne factory at the Chicago Western Chicago Electric Company. So, and they come up with behavioral approach to the management, where he considered human is as a social element, group norms, customs, informal groups all play an important role in management, where we have learned from behavioral concept, right? And then we move from behavioral concept to management, right? We discuss about the managerial management scientific approach, where we have discussed the uh, how we are using some theoretical analytical techniques, linear programming, quantitative techniques to solve the management problems by through the what you call the management science approach. And then from science management approach, we move into the system approach. The system approach where we discuss organization is work as a system. Now, what you need to know about this. Then we discuss about the contingency approach, where we discuss there won't be any particular management style or approach, but given situation, manager need to take appropriate management approach. And then we discuss the some contemporary approaches, where first we discuss about the Japanese management approach based on their development for the last 40 years or 50 years, how Japan has come to today's level, being the zero level, and what are the style they use it, or what are the approaches they practice, and we come up with Japanese management approach, supported with total quality management approach, with 5S, Kaizen, QC, JIT, Kanban, and to then William Mauchi is mix the two theories like American and Japan together and develop Z theory. And then we discuss excellence in business approach theory, where we discuss about the Thomas Peter, or we call Tom Peter, or Robert Waterman, in search of excellence. They have studied around 500 good companies in USA, and what are the specific characteristics they have shown or applied to become high productivity, high recognized organization. So they said there are 7 or key areas you need to apply in order to perform well. And then we may discuss about the technology-driven workplace, like what we have discussed, modular, holo, and virtual, right? And also we discuss a little bit of Sri Lankan management style, and then move into the knowledge management, because today organizations are based on knowledge, right? So those are the approaches to management. And we touch now very slowly about manager, play a critical role in an organization, you as managers. Now, your organization will do better if your manager carries out duties efficient and effective manner, right? You are the brand ambassador for your bank. So the way you execute your job will impact your organization, right? So therefore, first you need to understand who are our managers, right? Someone who coordinates and oversees work of other people, so that the organizational goals can be accomplished. So we call them as managers. So there are various classifications of managers. You can do classifications of management. Now, managers can be classified based on the hierarchy level, right? Like top managers, middle managers, lower managers, like frontline, middle line, top managers. Sometimes you can categorize them based on the scope of the manager. Common manager, specific manager. Now, say for an example, we look at it top middle managers, and managers can be classified from a different another way. One is vertical classification. So there are top managers, middle managers, first line managers, right? Top managers are usually responsible for drive the entire organization, right? So they are the people who license with outsiders. They are the people who develop strategies for the organization. The middle level managers are holding responsibility, run the department like business unit, marketing, you see, HR, finance, all are we call middle level managers. Then you have a first line managers. So those are the people who are responsible for operational activities, right? More or less operational activities. Okay, these are the one method of managerial types. Vertical classification, 1, 2, 3, based on the hierarchy, right? Then you may have a horizontal classification. There are two managerial classification. You call them as horizontal classification. Horizontal classification based on your functions. We'll have a line managers, line staff are responsible the departments that perform specific function. Now, if I ask you, what is the line function and what is the staff function? If I say line function, the line functions who are the people who are directly involved with activity to achieve the organization's goals and objectives. Line functions, right? But we have some functional manager who also perform a staff function. Now, staff functions mean who supported the line managers to achieve the goals and objectives. Right? Now, managers we can consider again classified into two. Managerial type, we can say vertical classification. Top management, top manager, middle manager, first line manager, or lower manager. Right? Horizontally also you can have a two type of managerial type. We call them as functional managers. Functional managers are responsible for the department. Now, there of course we call two type of managers, line managers and staff managers. What is a line manager's function? We call them as directly involve the final activity of the organization, goals and service, objectives, goals and objectives. But the staff managers who are in the functional level who supported the activities of line managers, support the activities of achieving, those are we call staff manager, staff function, who perform staff. Then we have another horizontal type classification we call general managers and project managers. Now, general managers we call them as a common manager or responsible for multiple departments. He is looking after the whole section. But there are some people who will, project managers will look after the projects. Right? So, horizontal classification, so therefore we have two types, that is functional as well as general. Okay, Understood? So managers therefore can be categorized vertical way as top manager, middle manager, first line, as vertical, as horizontal, functional, and a general manager. So we know what is a functional manager and also general manager, right? These are the way you can classify managers, right? So what sensible manager should do? What sensible manager should do, and that is developed by Mintzberg's management role, right? And mind you, we are just stopped today from this point, and we will continue managerial roles as well as very important area. We'll discuss about decision making, information technology, and some more things also, some control function on next year. So remember, we are not meeting next Sunday. Next Sunday is a holiday for you. So we will, let's see you on 2021, the first Sunday, right? And today what we have discussed, I think we discussed the management evolution up to present position. I hope you understood. Then we discuss a little bit of managers. We identify the type of managers. We need to know the role of a manager and a skill of a manager. As a manager, what are the skills you need to develop? As a manager, what is the role you need to perform? Right? So we will discuss those factors in next time, with supported with decision making, planning, IT, and delegation authority, and I will give you another area, right? Okay, now almost 12:30. So any questions? Have you understood? I need a feedback from you because then only my effort will be fruitful. If you understood at least what is management theory, that's the important thing for me. So whatever I mean, so what I teaching you, so not only one area, we covered a lot of textbooks with my practical knowledge, and I also read before I lecturing for you, get more the more modern aspects. I want to fulfill your knowledge with to be talented and to be compare or compete with anybody in the world and even in Sri Lanka, whoever the MBA or A level. So they also learning the same thing. Mind you, you learn more than them, in fact. And with the modern educational technique, I use certain areas for you to explain more. What I learn is not what I teach you, right? So when we learn all these things uh, are more developed now. Okay, right. So I hope you understood. Gayan, you are okay. I hope Champika, then Isivara, right? Karnaratna, and thank you for with me for this 4 hour. So have a nice weekend on next 27th. So enjoy yourself, and we will see you on next year, and of all the best for your Christmas who are celebrating, and we will see you in the fresh year. Hopeful good year for everybody of us. In fact, we like to be with one-to-one context. Unfortunately, it's not there, but however, thank you again for you actively involving with me for this 4 sessions. So we will discuss next week, and we may have till February or maybe early March, we need to go ahead with this with HR as well, and maybe considers to be a fruitful duration. Thank you very much. So we will see you again next year.